and good evening, and welcome to day one of 100 Days of Shakespeare. So, my name is Paul Adams. I am the director of Small Crown Productions, and I am hopefully live streaming on the Small Crown Productions YouTube channel and the Small Crown Productions Facebook page. So, first time I've done it here. Fingers crossed it's going to work. So, I've tested the YouTube. I haven't tested the Facebook before because I haven't had the chance to. So, we'll see how it goes. But I'm really thrilled to join the 100 Days of Shakespeare event that's happening as of today. It kicks off today. So thought I might start off with just a very quick rundown on what the event is. So I am the member, or not the member, I am a member of the Society for Creative Anachronism, which is a medieval reenactment and recreation society. It's actually a worldwide society. It was started over 50 years ago in the United States, and it has spread across the world. And pretty much we will look at, research, recreate as much as we can in various time periods pre-1600s. So anything from sort of, the end of the Elizabethan era and before. It used to be from about 600 AD, but over the last number of years, a lot of people have been getting into Greek and Roman, and so the time period is extending. That said, that's pretty much what the society is. And so one of our members locally here in Australia, Karolina Firman, decided to start a 100 Days of Shakespeare event. And I'll just read you the little blurb that she wrote, which is her reasoning behind it. So the idea is to study and enjoy the work of Shakespeare through a variety of mediums in order to develop a deeper understanding of his works and the time period in which they were created. The 100 days starts from today, 2nd of February 2021, and ends on the 13th of May 2021. Interested participants can be as engaged and studious as they wish, have the time for, or the energy to dedicate. So this is a really great idea. So she's laid out a plan for 100 days for people to join the event, contribute whatever they learn, whatever they know, whatever they want to share in regards to the works of Shakespeare, the life and times of Shakespeare, which I think is great. I mean, I'm a fan. I love Shakespeare. So for me, this is just a fantastic idea. Happy to support it. I'm late to the gate, so I only found out about this very recently, and so I've been trying to work out what I can do. And I thought, you know what? I'll just start with a few live streams on the channel because I know there'll be content here shared that will be of benefit to other people as well. So in the description of this live stream, you should see a link. And if it doesn't appear there at the moment, then I'll make sure it gets dropped in there after the live stream is over, so that if you want to, you can join the event. You don't have to be a member of the society in order to join the event. She's opened it up to the public so that it can be just a great kind of resource for anyone that's interested. So super excited for that, which is awesome. She has dropped in there a Google Doc of some resources, so the Folger Library and a whole bunch of other things like podcasts and websites and things that might be of interest to somebody who's looking to dig a little deeper into the life and times of Shakespeare. And so it's an opportunity to throw yourself into a little bit of exploration around that period and around Shakespeare's work and see what you get out of it. And as she said in that blurb, you can be as dedicated or as loose about it as you like, which I think is really, really good because it means that you can approach it on your own terms, which is fantastic. So awesome. So I thought what I would do is just kind of talk about two things. One, just a little bit of a reflection on my experience with Shakespeare because I love it. I love it. I've loved it for a long time. And the SCA, the society, is actually where I got my start as a producer and a director, and really as an actor for the work of Shakespeare. I fell in love with Shakespeare in high school, loved it, found a really just a deep love for it and wanted to pursue it more. And then when we found ourselves, my wife and I, in this medieval reenactment group, it became the outlet for me creatively. And I was searching through some old documentation to try and find some research papers that I wrote back when I was doing a lot more research around Shakespeare in the earlier days, and stumbled across a photo, which I'll just throw up now. So this is actually a photo of the very first full-length Shakespeare play that I ever produced. So in Australia, we have an event called Rowaney Festival, and that is held in Sydney every year. And this would have been about 1997, 1998. And being young and green and a lot less grey, as you can see sitting in that chair, I had no idea. I was just gun ho, and so we cast this play with a full cast, no double ups, no second characters. Everybody played one role. The beauty of that meant that I was able to offer roles to people who were really just testing the water and wanting to just see what it was like to perform and have a go. And it meant that if they decided halfway through the rehearsal process they really didn't like it, that they could pull out and we could double up roles if we had to, without it being a massive impact. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And one of those people in particular actually went on to not only perform in a number of works, but she also became a really great director in her own right within the society and did a lot of really amazing theatre work herself. So I tip my hat to you, Ros Howie. You're out there. But yeah, it was a really great testing ground to experiment and play and just really cut my teeth on Shakespeare and other classic works. So I would take historical pieces, historic stories, other period texts like the Nibelungenlied, which is a German epic, and Viking epics, and convert some of those stories into scripts for us to perform at feasts and events like Rowaney Festival. So this particular show was the Comedy of Errors. We produced it in Brisbane, rehearsed it in Brisbane, and took it to our Sydney festival to perform. We did one show, and that was it. We learned a few years later that we should probably perform in Brisbane as well, which became a bit of a staple at that time, that we'd do a show in Brisbane and then do one in Sydney for the festival, which was great. But this show in particular, I mean, partly because it was the first show that I fully directed as a full cast, but also because the show itself kind of took on a life of its own in many ways. And one of the best stories I have from that was, you can see the lanterns hanging along the edge of that tent. So when we got down there, we were allocated this tent as a performance space, and we started performing inside the tent. So this scene that you see was probably fairly early in the show, but it became very evident very quickly that the sound of our voices was actually bouncing off the roof of the tent and back into the tent, and very little sound was carrying out to the audience, who were sitting just outside the tent. You can see a head and a shoulder just on the corners of that where this photo was taken. And so scene by scene, we were slowly pushing the actors further and further out until eventually we were all performing outside the tent, and we were using the tent just purely as a backdrop and an entrance and exit, as you can see in the middle of that tent there. But at one point, somebody walked out and so intent on getting into the scene that they headbutted one of those little lanterns and just caused it to swing. Got a bit of a laugh, no problem. And a couple of scenes later, somebody else did the same thing. A couple of scenes later, somebody else did it and actually knocked it off the actual the tent, and so it landed on the floor, on the ground. A couple of scenes later, somebody comes out not seeing it there. Nobody cleared it, and we're all green as grass and had no idea that we really should do that. So somebody walks out a couple of scenes later, steps on the lamp and crushes it flat. And then another scene or two later, somebody comes out and, not seeing it, kicks it across the stage. And so this lamp became one of the main characters of the show and got more laughs than most of us. So fun times, really great fun times. And we went on to produce a main show like that every year for years at the Rowaney Festival. And it became a staple of work that we did up here and a staple of work that we did down there. And it was amazing. It was good fun. So a little bit of history there, a little bit of my background in Shakespeare, and there we go. So, but the society has been an amazing place to really just hone my skills in the early stages of my career. And it was actually my performance and production resume that I built up, and the experience that I built up as an actor and a director and a producer and a writer, really, through those years, that allowed me to essentially have a resume with some kind of, gravitas when I went professional in 2004. And, just the constant doing, we were doing, easily 3 to 5 shows a year, if not more at times, just running in show after show after show, and just that constant doing really hones the skills. And it was an amazing time, and we had some amazing talent hanging around at that time, and got to work with some amazing people, and yeah, it was just incredible. So I have a real soft spot for the society. I have a real soft spot for creating work within the society, and definitely supporting uh, an absolutely adventurous event like 100 Days of Shakespeare within the society. So really encourage you to jump into the event, take a bit of a leaf out of that book, and just go hard and really enjoy yourself, and learn what you can, and explore what you can. And if there's a particular point of interest, I think the group will probably, as more and more people join, be a great group where people are going to just help each other out to find resources and point people in the right direction of things that you're looking for. So if you've got an interest in Shakespeare and you are keen to jump in and either teach or learn, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's going to be a really fun 100 days. So my plan is to essentially live stream something, as many of those 100 days as I can. At this stage, it'll possibly be about 9 o'clock at night until I can set up a little bit more of a plan. This was a little bit kind of thrown together in the last minute. So, but my hope is that I can be on here for as many of the 100 days as possible, share some things that I know and that I've learned, that I've experienced with Shakespeare, share my love and passion for it, but also share the skills, the knowledge, and the experience of others, so that we can all learn together. So I thought the main thing that I would really touch on tonight is why Shakespeare, why, I guess that ultimate question that people still ask today, 400 and was it 402 years? He had his birthday, 400th birthday very recently. A lot of people still asking, is it relevant? Is Shakespeare relevant? And it's a question I think that won't go away, because they were written such a long time ago. And I think it's a valid question to keep exploring, because there may come a time where it is no longer relevant to study the works of Shakespeare. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But it's a valid question to ask. So what do I think? You may or may not be asking. Well, I actually think it absolutely is relevant. I think Shakespeare's work transcends time. I think there is a lot of things written that are very much for the moment. I mean, I think movies are another great example. There are some movies that we see that are just timeless classics, amazing stories that resonate through the ages, that just never seem to date, or they might date, but they never seem to get old. And I think Shakespeare's work, for the most part, obviously not every play, but I think for the most part, his work does do that. And, I think the easiest way to think about that is, what is happening today that we can relate back to some of his work? And, I'm looking over the last few days, and I have been absolutely fascinated and enthralled and raptured, just engrossed, for lack of a better word, in what is going on in the US at the moment with the GME stocks. And, you start to look at that, the distribution of wealth. You start to look at the way that the common man has risen up to try and, exploit an opportunity and take advantage of an opportunity. I won't use exploit, because a lot of people put a negative connotation on that, but I think exploit is the right word. It's taking an opportunity that you see viable, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But you look at what's happening over there at the moment with the hedge funds and, the common man rising up to try and take advantage of an opportunity that exists, where in the past, what appears to be an opportunity only available to, the very wealthy hedge fund managers, hedge funds themselves. And there has been an opportunity through the use and the power of social media and the internet to create a loophole, and the common man is taking a hold of that advantage. And, when you think about that distribution of wealth and the power of that wealth, or the perceived power of that wealth, my mind can't help but go to Shylock and the Merchant of Venice, and that power play through the wealth of the state and the wealth of the individual. And you see that kind of resonating a little bit through that whole situation. So, and I think that's a really clear connection point. I think that's really very valid. Look at the political power play that we see all over the world. I mean, again, we could look to the US and think about, Donald Trump in power, and the big anti-push for Trump that there was. And you look at how through a lot of Shakespeare's plays, I mean, obviously we see a lot of it in history, those historic situations where, back in those days, you killed someone to become the next king. So you look at Macbeth, who was, just taken by ambition and desired to be king so much, and then had people like his wife pushing him down a certain line of behavior because it was the only way to absolutely guarantee them that opportunity. And, the morality around that, the opportunity around that. And you could say that although maybe in the Western countries we don't see straight out murder of those political powers quite so often. I mean, obviously we've had political assassinations in the past, but, with social media and the advantages of, an open internet, you can essentially murder someone's career overnight and basically take them out of high-ranking positions purely because of the access to information. So, that ambition and that drive and people taking advantage of things, whether you class it as moral or immoral, in that way, we see that play out day in, day out. And of course, there are some situations where we see very high-powered people disappear, and there are connections to political powers or anti-political powers in the midst of those sorts of things as well. Absolutely relevant to today. You think about just the common themes that are really powerful through his plays. Love, greed, retribution, betrayal, fear, jealousy. All of these things that Shakespeare just did an amazing job of writing about and creating characters around that are still relevant today. We still feel those emotions, and he writes in a way that articulates the emotion through word in a way that is very hard to parallel. A lot of people can't write like that. His ability to shape both sides of a character, in many of the plays we see characters' positive sides and their negative sides. We see their follies and their skills and the positive things about them. So he had a really great ability to write a very three-dimensional character. I mean, I don't know how many movies I've watched over the years where I sort of finish and go, man, those characters, they were just two-dimensional and boring and just didn't have anything real gutsy and no real depth, and the script writing was shallow. And, you look at that and it's so common. But Shakespeare's work, more often than not, has that depth and has that gravitas about it, and the characters are well-rounded. We see all levels of society in his work, everything from the rich and the powerful through to the common man. And we see how one situation can affect all those layers of society. I think about something like Midsummer Night's Dream, where we're seeing the nobles, the lovers, the children of nobles, and the common man in the mechanicals, and the spirit world, which, is another whole realm. But we see these things all affected in different ways through the same situations that are going on. Now, you could argue, of course, that the mechanicals don't really know what's going on in the world around them. They're so focused on their only thing. But again, their ability to do what they do is affected by what's happening with these other people in that place. So, you see the full scope of humanity through his work, which I think is just incredible. And of course, the thing that so many people love to refer to, and I'm going to blatantly do it now, is the phrases that he introduced into language. If you are, I'm going to read this straight off a website, so news.usc.edu. If you have ever said, "It's Greek to me," suffered from green-eyed jealousy, stood on ceremony, been tongue-tied, hoodwinked, or in a pickle, you're quoting Shakespeare. It's pretty rare for someone to be able to introduce so much to a language and have it stick for years and years and years. And I think the incredible thing about that is, in the context of writing those plays and introducing these phrases, you actually introduce them in a way where they make sense. You understand the inference. It's all good and well to come up with a new phrase or a new word or something new that you want to share as a catchphrase or whatever. But people have to know what it is. They have to understand it. They have to get it. And he just had a way of positioning these phrases and wording them in a way that stuck and made sense to people even at that time. And we see them now carry through 400 years later, and they are just parts of our vocabulary. We don't think about them, sorry, they're just second nature phrases that we use. So is Shakespeare relevant? Abso-freaking-lutely. Absolutely. I mean, the work that he did is still absolutely relevant. So that's what I want to touch on tonight. First live stream. Give you a little bit of an idea of some of the things I'm hoping to cover over the 100 days. And again, some nights I might get on and just read a sonnet so that I've done a day and made it through. So my goal is to do all 100 days. That's my plan. I'm going to try and stick to that as much as I can. So some of the things that I'm hoping to cover are history, Shakespeare's life, a little bit around that. The plays and the sonnets themselves, we'll have a look at some of those. I'm going to spend a night where I actually get some input from people out there in the internet and write a sonnet live through one of the live streams. So I'll take you through that process of what I do and how I do that. You're not aware, which most people probably aren't, is I love writing Shakespearean style sonnets and have sold them as a product. So if you want a sonnet, hit me up. I can sell them to you as gifts. I want to look at the whole concept of the anti-Shakespeare movement that thinks that like Francis Bacon was actually the writer of Shakespeare plays. And I want to look a little bit at the history of how we get to the Elizabethan play and some of the impact that it had around the time. So what was the first recorded English piece of theatre, and what was that journey of English theatre through to the Elizabethan era? So that's some research that I did years ago that I love. I think it's fascinating. But I think the different types of plays that came through the different eras are also quite fascinating. So we'll touch on a little bit of that in that lead up to how we get from no recorded English theatre to the Elizabethan period. And so we'll go through a bit of that. So that's some of the stuff that I'm going to touch on over the coming 100 days. Obviously be playing around in the event, and hope to see you there. So I'll make sure that link is in the description below. Share the event. I think, it's the sort of thing that could be really exciting to have a whole bunch of people jump in on. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. Oh, I was supposed to look at the chat. Forgot to look at the chat. So if you're out there chatting to me, I'm 100% sorry. It's the first time I've done a live stream and I've completely forgot about the chat. So can I? No, I haven't opened it up. So I'll make sure I open the chat up next time so that I can actually talk back to you about what it is that you might be saying as well. And of course, if there's no chat, well then I've done no wrong. So thanks very much. I shall see you tomorrow. At this stage, I will say at the same time, 9 p.m. Brisbane time. So I'll see you there.